This is the Freud's Angels podcast.
I'm Vanessa, your intuitive counselor.
And I'm Grace, your spiritual guide. Our goal is to help you learn to blend your spiritual connection
And mental consciousness to give you clarity
and understanding to lead a life
of your choosing. Welcome.
We're glad you're here.
Hello, angels. Welcome to episode 186 of the Freud's Angels podcast. Just going to take a deep breath before we start because once again, I'm jacked up on coffee because I was
This
a
should be
zombie.
interesting.
Now I'm an excited zombie. And so we shall see where it goes. It's a good conversation though that I've been having with myself that I want people to have with themselves, but it's a very edgy. Like I feel like I got very excited about the name that we decided on for this podcast because it feels like pearl clutching for what
Yeah.
we usually put out here. But
Yeah.
I promise you that this is going to be an amazing podcast and an
Informative.
enlightening and informative podcast. I mean, I think that they all are, of course. That's why we do this. But this one feels very like it has to happen. This is a conversation a lot of us, I think, need to have with ourselves right now. So,
Absolutely.
what is that conversation, Grace?
Yeah. So, and we're going to have a conversation about letting the dream die. I want to give like this, it's going to get a little tangential because there's a lot of information. We probably talked for about 45 minutes about what we were going to talk about before we even started recording. So have space, have time, and just relax into the info. Come back and listen to it a couple of times. You'll get different information every time because it's hot for us, and I feel that both of us are going through some sort of transition and understanding of, reconnecting to where we're at with our dreams, and what do the old dreams mean, and how do they impact us in creating them, and is it in alignment with where we're at now, and how to maneuver through that. So buckle up, friends.
Yeah. And I feel like hopefully that 45 minutes that we spent did something, right? Because I feel like we needed to do a little trauma dumping
Yes.
beforehand so that we wouldn't do it here.
Yes.
So we'll do some of it, but it was very, very. I just got sidetracked because Grace changed her background, and I want to be where her background is, and it was very a moment, right? Which
Right.
which goes with this, right? It goes with this conversation, but yeah, like you said, it's we're gonna go some places, but I think it's really important to go these places, and this is a place that I don't think a lot of people want to go because it's very scary, right? Like even just saying it, let the dream die is like, well, then what happens, right? Like then I die, right? But what we're talking about isn't let your dreams die, and that's an important distinction, I believe. I feel like I came here to this podcast with a set of information that I just learned last night. So it's still fresh and it's still kicking around in my head. But it came from I'm reading a book by my current favorite content creator, Lewis Howes. I go through, you know what I mean? I think that I think a lot of people do this. Like we get on trends with people and we ride the ride with them for a while. And then, maybe with our evolution, we go looking for different information. So right now I'm on the Lewis Howes train. And so I bought his book. And one of the things, I mean, I'm very early on in the book, but one of the things that I admired so much about the information that he gives is that it's not just all about, oh, how to get here. He's talking about the things that had to happen to him, the deaths that had to happen in his experiences and belief systems and work, even in order to create what he decided to create. And he even, mentions what I'm doing right now, which is very successful, may also die. I don't know, but I'm open to it. And I was
Mm.
like, I mean, it was again like pearl clutchy. I was like, why would you do that? You're very successful. Like, what would you like? Why would you do that? And now, like I see his journey has been that he has been successful and lost it. So I'm sure that that's where it comes from, right? He has a lot of confidence because he has done it. He's built
Yeah.
multiple times from the bottom. So you gain confidence when you do that. But the first time is not the easy time. The first time is the holy shit time. So yeah, I feel like I'm very curious about what letting the dream die means for everybody and myself included.
Yeah. And I think so, and we're thinking about letting the dream die. And I think the great perspective that Vanessa you gave us was, or me anyways, that about being presented with opportunity, right? If we have these dreams, like say for example, somebody comes to me and offers me a book deal.
Mhm.
It says, I need you to write these books. Like this is we're going to write these books. Would I accept? Is that something that I still want to do? Would I freak the fuck out? It's like, you know,
Mhm.
where are my blocks in thinking that will ever happen? Eh, Because we have dreams, I think sometimes because they're safe because there's a part of us that doesn't believe it'll ever happen.
Sometimes, yeah.
And not all the time, but like I think a lot of my dreams, I mean, if you talk about 9 years ago when I went to Sedona and I moved there, I was like, I'm going to be a healer and I'm going to learn and I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be healed and I'm going to help others heal and blah. And it's not that I don't do that, but I don't do that in that way. That dream had to die a very hard, prolonged death because I kept returning to it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
allow other things in my life
Yeah. It was
as
a
what I
death by
wanted to do.
dragging.
Right. It was like I was just dragging it along. It was like, the teddy bear that you drag along that's seen better days and is one thread away from disintegrating and you're like, "I just love it." And
The
because
visual is
I mean,
amazing.
if if we think about it, when we make dreams in the beginning of our when we're kind of like in that mode of like, I want my life to be different, right? I want to change up my life. I have dreams. Okay. We establish I have a dream. What is that dream? Okay. I'll use me as an example. I wanted to be a healer. Why? Because I felt disconnected from my world because I didn't feel connected. It was the thing that lit me up at the time, so I just wanted to do it all the time. And if I did it all the time, then I'd be happy, right? Everything would be good. I'd be happy again. Like it was just this need that this idea that if I achieved that dream and was that person, then everything would be okay. That was like my whole thing around it was that I'll be okay. I'll be worthy. I'll have like worth or I'll have uh what's the word I'm looking for? Value
Mhm.
in life, in someone's life, in the world. Like there's something that I will contribute to the betterment of the world. Like there was so much riding on this dream, right? That
Mhm.
I needed at that time. Um and there's no other way that I could have seen it anything else happening because that was my ticket, right? We talk
Yeah.
about our ticket. That was my
Mhm.
ticket to what I wanted in life. And yeah, that was wrong.
Or, incomplete.
Yes. Yes. Well,
One-dimensional.
yeah. Yeah. And and when we think about it now, I could look back and go, "Oh, you're so naive." And at the time my name was Amy, and so I'd be like, "Oh, Amy, you were so naive." And I'm like, "You know what? No, I was not." Because the dream
Mhm.
itself, whilst it was created from a space of trauma, of needing to belong, of needing to feel valued, of needing to feel worthy, needing to feel like I was enough, all the stuff that existed inside of me, the dream itself was the catalyst to get me to where I am now. Like, right?
Mhm.
I- I- But when I realized that what I had dreamed was going to happen didn't happen, it was kind of like At the time, it was a little sad, which is why I dragged it along for another couple years.
Mm,
Um, eh, I I felt like I failed because it didn't work. I felt it was
mm,
because of me, but it didn't
mm,
work. And I was unwilling to say, "No, no, no, no. You're being asked to put this dream down because look at this. There's just something so much better over here."
mm,
You only know to the limit of your mind's understanding and experience. And if you have not experienced this other thing, you don't think it's possible, right? So when we're in that space and we're dreaming, we're like, that's it. That's as high as my mind will go. That glass ceiling, that's as high as it'll go. But when we get into the space of we're hitting that glass ceiling and we allow things to show up into our lives, all of a sudden we realize the glass ceiling is an illusion and the
mm,
dream is an illusion. It was
mhm.
just that it was just that first section of the ladder, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I stayed on that section and was refusing to climb farther because I was like, "This is what I want to be, and God damn it, I'm going to be it. I don't
Yep.
care. I don't care."
Same. I mean, it's literally where I'm at right now. I've been saying it. I've been saying it a lot where I'm like, I don't have dreams, right? Like, and this has been for months. I've been like, what's my dream now? Because I achieved the only dream I ever had, right? Which makes me very sad to say out loud, but it was so far reaching. I mean, this was part of the pregame of, 10 years ago, me didn't understand that this was a possibility, that the life that I have right now is a possibility.
Yeah,
Even with the things that I still kind of am looking for, maybe materialistically or whatever, like the whole of it just didn't feel like that was something that I could do. And now that I'm here, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I did it, but I don't feel that thing." And one of the things that I remember watching in somebody's Mind Valley talk was, she was talking about when she finally made like a certain amount of money that she was looking for, she didn't feel like what she thought she was supposed to feel, which
yeah,
was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to have a friggin' party." Because the person that she became, that was like an expectation, right?
yeah,
Because that was part of the journey. So she was just there being like, "Okay, I did it," and like there's no incredulousness about it. And that's what I feel like happened is that it used to be like, wow, working for yourself and having that be your only whatever and making your own schedule and not like 10 years ago, it was like nobody can survive like that, right? Like my had such those belief systems. And so then I became the person that does those things, but it was like it was so singularly focused that that was making it for me, right? For that version of me. I didn't evolve the dream with each evolution of me. And then I got stuck and I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do now? Right? Like, it really showed me the limits that I unintentionally put on myself by not going further. And I realized that there's so many reasons why that didn't happen. Um, that go on along with my life, right? Like other traumas, like we've been talking about of like, whether it's my belief system about what I do makes me not, hang around with certain people. Like I have an invite sitting, I'm gonna say it right out loud and out myself. I have an invite sitting in my messages to hang out with a bunch of local therapists. And I haven't addressed it at all because I'm like, "God," like, do I wanna do that? Do I want to be in that network? And it's very, like, putting me up against, like, because when you get there, you're gonna talk about this stuff, and is that really who you wanna be and
yeah,
what you wanna create? And it was like, "Oh god, it's who I am."
yeah,
Right? Right? And so, like, it really challenges you when you allow it to challenge you to just not make it and stay there. And
yeah,
I think that that's, not that I'm gonna just abandon everybody. I feel like a lot of times I have this conversation or I put something on Facebook or Instagram and my clients start to panic, like, "Where the fuck are you going? Are you leaving? Are you closing your practice?" Not gonna do that right now. But what I have to do is allow that to be a possibility, and that's fucking terrifying.
Yep.
even to say out loud right now, because
Yep.
I don't know what else there is. This was the only thing I ever wanted, the only thing I could have ever dreamed of, and I can't go beyond that. And
Yep.
so, like, when you were saying in the pregame, we were talking about that, and I was really when I was doing this exercise, Lewis Howes, I'm a quarter of the way into your book, and I'm like, "Yeah!" Like, props, because it's not easy to get me into that space or actually do these exercises, but I came right up against it of, "Okay, so what other things do you think that you want? And if it were handed to you today, do you want it?" Like, if it were handed to you, if you were given that opportunity, or is that a dream that you made up based on some very limiting experiences?
Yeah.
Or are you open to following a path that has no end because you can't see the end?
Yep.
It's scary even just saying it out loud. I was like,
I
"No."
know. It's like, let me go vomit,
I
please.
have to eat and pay my rent, so no. This is the only way
And
I know how to do it.
and it's I love you saying that because right now, like I work and I get paid for social media and doing some social media in their website. And part of me, I keep asking myself, am I done? Am I done? Am I done investing that time into someone else's path and not my own? And that part of me that there's a part of me that goes, "What the fuck are you considering? Like, are you crazy? Are you high right now? Like, what the hell is happening?" Um, and I'm like, "No, of course I'm not gonna do it right now. It would totally disrupt my apple cart, and I don't know that my apple cart has any apples left in it anymore." But
Yeah.
it it's like, oh, I think sometimes we have those thoughts because it's, like, leading us to the idea of, can it be true? If that happened, what is possible? It stretches us into the idea, and unfortunately, when you have trauma brain, it's like death and chaos is what it leads
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Even just a thought.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the thing that's so weird about it is, like, I sit with my clients and I tell them over and over and over again, "Just because you say it here doesn't mean you have to do it." Like,
Yeah.
you're here to process, so you can say it, and 1 second after it comes out of your mouth, you can go, "Vanessa, I don't wanna do that." And I'm not gonna be like, "But you said," right? Like, not at all, right? Because it's part of the process to just let your brain tell you what it knows, let your heart tell it what you know what I mean? Like, that's part of the process. But yet but yet, when I think about like, "Oh, if I say it out loud, then what?" Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. I can sit here and I can say because this is legitimately what happened. I'll let you guys in on what a little bit of what's gone on in my head. I have come to the idea and the knowledge that I like to speak about things. I like to talk about things. Like talking is how I get things done, right? Like when it's just me and I'm in my head, it's just not the same magic. So I love talking and interacting and showing and bringing like all the knowledge that I dump into my head, dumping it back out to other people. I love doing that.
Yeah.
And immediately what my brain could actually conceptualize was being a speaker, right? And that's because that's what my brain could conceptualize because I don't know anything about the speaking industry. So I started on the journey of being like, okay, then I will figure out how to become a speaker, right? Because sounds good. Sounds good. I can add it on. I don't have to abandon what I'm doing right now. Feels very safe. And then I was like, I don't want to do that. Right, like, I like, what I was looking at, I was like, I don't wanna do that. That sounds very not fun. It's very not me. I can't be that person." And I got scared because I was like, "Well, now you're abandoning a thing you just told people you wanted to be. What is that? Now you're wishy-washy." Like, a whole bunch of things came in, and I was like, "We don't do that anymore." But I see how fast that comes in, right? And I'm literally just brainstorming, getting information, and letting it evolve. Just let the process happen because if you don't, you will run right back to safety and never do anything. And that was like, for sure, what happened when the thoughts came in. Because it felt like if a thought came in, I immediately had to do it, own it, or I would be a failure or a fraud or some other weird conversation that I think sometimes I don't even want to get into because I'm like, well, it's not right, so do something different. Like, We've accepted that this is unacceptable. So like, let's just do something different. Sometimes I don't dive super deep, but that's the thing about it, right? Like if just because we let ourselves dream about something doesn't mean anything, but we've really been trained to believe that if you start to imagine something else, you have to do it. You have to have complete ownership
Yeah.
or else. And it's terrifying because you might not want to do it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when I had that dream, like you said, like being the healer, it's like, yeah, but no. Um and
Not
it's fine.
exactly.
It, it's not that I don't do them or give them. I do. But I found that there is so much more to me than that. I am not just a healer. I am not just a psychic reader. I am not just those things. I am so vastly different. And y'all wonder why the podcast has been on for 4 years is because both of us love to talk. We we're an air sign. It's our major form of manifestation is
Mhm,
talking it into existence. It's how we
mhm,
work. But
mhm,
yet I think I too am in my head. I too am in my I got to figure it all out. Oh my girl, that's not your superpower. Your superpower is talking it all out. It's like,
yeah,
like that's why
mhm.
talk therapy works for me. Um it's
So
because
weird.
I
Right in front of our faces. Yeah, we're
yes,
like, "Oh, let's look around it."
you know, right? But I also love like I did a shamanic journey with a trusted mentor the other day and I met up with a guide that I have had for a long time. And it's a past life thing. We definitely were connected in a past life. And I realized and it sparked that feeling I felt when I started writing my books.
Mm,
And I have missed it for so long. Like I have not written anything since I lived in Sedona. Anything, anything.
mm,
No books, no blogs, nothing. I haven't written anything. Besides the blurbs you see with the podcast. That's not very much. Um, and it was like, and I felt that little thrill again. And I was
mm,
like, oh, and because I mean, I had a lot going on in Vancouver. That's nothing against me or whatever. It's just that I wasn't in the space to feel creative. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm an author too. Maybe
I mean, you
not just,
already are, but yes,
yeah, like, it's like maybe
like
that's
more than
part
a couple times author.
right. Yeah. Well, yeah, true. Um, but it's like maybe that's part of my creative outlet, my way of being in the world, like my light, like how do your mission. I think you
Mhm.
you said a phrase that was brilliant. Lewis,
House. Again, I can't I'm just gonna, like, everybody go watch. I hope he gets, like, tons of more listeners because of this. He calls it simply meaningful mission.
yeah, yeah,
Simply.
like, yeah. Um, I would love I had the idea the other day that resurfaced again. Like I love doing guided meditations, and I love that Vanessa does them too because I think we're great. We'd be great at it, both of us. And I one of the things I wanted to do my very first website, I was like, "Ooh, I'll sell my meditations on." Yeah, that didn't happen. I had to create them, and I didn't create them. And so I just I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, I actually have a decent setup now. I could do meditations now. I could record them." I'm like, "Oh," and so all of these things and the dream died itself. It just was like, "Oh, okay, that's not what I'm supposed to do." But and being a healer and whatever, but there's other ones that resurface, right? We let the dream die, but I think sometimes the ones that we've had before that have been overshadowed by this big arching dream that we have come back around because they're like, "Oh, we were just waiting for you to just stop being so blind to the ability to be everything." right? To be multifaceted. We're not just one human. And we were re-recording, as you guys have heard, we re-recorded the intros and outros to our podcast, right?
Sounds
Because we
amazing,
both
right?
are we did them. Usually it takes us like 7 or 8 takes. We did them in one. That was freaking amazing. I'm like, we are awesome. And so
We're
and
really
one
podcasters. 4
yeah.
years later, we've discovered this.
Um, and one of the things that we put in it was like what we are. Do you realize how long it took me to kind of like not have anxiety about labeling myself? And like, I'm like, I don't know, Vanessa. I don't just want to be a psychic healer. And I'm like, I don't want to be. And I was having such a problem because I feel like everything limited to
Yeah.
put a cap on everything. And so it was like, oh, and I realized I've been struggling my entire like journey with this energy work and the healers and the readings, understanding what or who I was.
Mhm.
And I think because there was a part of me in the beginning that didn't trust what I was doing. I didn't
Yeah.
think that I could live up to what I thought that was. But as you heard, we came upon a phrase, and I'm like, that encompasses probably everything I do, all the facets of me. I don't have to
Absolutely.
rebrand myself every time I change my functions.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Right. Like, and I feel like, what was so funny about it was that it was like, and I didn't say this then because it didn't come to me until just now. This is our podcast.
Yeah.
If in 1 month you said, I don't want to do that, we would just re-record the stupid fucking intro
Yeah.
and you could use different words, right?
Yeah.
Like it's totally fine. And it doesn't bust our credibility. And I think that that's part of it, right? Like, is that like, it has to feel so credible in our minds because it's the ownership that we decide of. It's like a final ownership, right? And like it's so scary to have final ownership. We don't
Well,
have to have final ownership. We really don't. Like I was very secure on mine because I've been doing it for a bunch of years now where I'm like, I landed on this thing. I love this thing. I love to say it. It feels exactly like what I do. If in 3 months I stumble across something and I become, like obsessed with it, I might be the one that says, okay, I want to re-record the intro because I want everybody to know that I'm this thing too, right? Like because I feel it and I embody it and I want to say it out loud and I want it to be out in the world, right?
yeah.
And it doesn't break my credibility to evolve. It adds to my credibility to evolve. That's what we're telling people to do, and we can't do it. Come on, like yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Well, I mean, not to expose anything or anything, but look how long it took you to adopt the idea of being intuitive.
1,000%. And
And like
didn't even understand how it worked for
yeah.
me
Yeah.
because I was comparing myself to how everybody else did it.
Yep. Oh God, that's a whole nother podcast is comparison. That's something I just fucking went
Yeah.
through and I'm like, ugh.
What's funny is that we talked about it so much in the pregame, and then we did not come up with it as
I
a
know,
topic.
right? It was like an
We're
hour
not
and a half,
ready.
almost 2 hours of talking about being comparison and the shame of it. Yeah, that didn't even cross our minds to talk about it.
Not ready for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm not ready
Yeah.
to be called out that much in one
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast.
We're not ready for that. But like when you were talking about the meditation thing, and this is what's so funny about it, is that I feel like this is what happened to me. And again, like a lot of people say this thing and it doesn't land on me sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I've heard it and I've heard it and I've heard it, but then I have to be in a certain place and hear it from a certain person in order for it to land on me. And it has been landing on me of like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Right. And like, why? And I started to talk about in my head and out on piece of paper, why did you want to have your own business? And it was at first it was like the whole freedom and the whatever, but then I remembered that was running from the system.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, that's the only time that it took off." Right? And I like made a whole LinkedIn post because I'm on LinkedIn again. We'll see what happens there. But I made a whole post about it because it felt like that was one of the places where I was judging myself the hardest. So I was like, "Well, go ahead and drop something in there to remind you of why of how you got where you were." I had to let go of that and just be me. I
Yeah.
had to be able to say, I wanna do it my way because I think it works better when I do it my way, and I don't know what that way is. I'm discovering it as I go along, and don't you know, that's when things started to get better. That's when people started to come. That's when magic really started to happen in these sessions. So I had to disconnect from money. I had to disconnect from the title of, I had to disconnect from literally disconnect from my license. There were so many things I had to disconnect from of why I was doing things. And like it had to come from a different space. And this is where the meditation thing came in because the first thing that I ever connected to with meditations and what I used to do in the rehabs, the only meditations I ever did for the guys was progressive muscle relaxation because I knew they were in detox. They couldn't do the expansive mind thing, but they could do the body thing. Like if you're just controlling and contracting and releasing muscles, everybody can do that, right? And that was what helped me. So years ago, I recorded one progressive muscle relaxation exercise. I sent it sometimes to clients when I felt like that they could use it, and that was it. And for some reason that came back around and I was like, "Well, why did you do that?" Because I thought it would help them.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Oh my god, you know why you haven't done all the other stuff? Because you've been thinking about it as a business decision instead of God, like when I'm not around, my clients could probably use my voice sometimes.
Yeah.
And if they had something, a way to access that, that's probably gonna be helpful for them because they trust me."
Yep.
And it was like, "Oh," and then suddenly I was able to do it. And it was like, "Well, that's not weird." It's weird, but not weird, right?
Yeah.
Because I was connecting to like a better intention than
Right.
money or making money or survival and all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, that blew me away really to think about that of like, well, the why mattered so much more than I could have seen then.
Yeah.
But now I understand it when people are talking about like, I'm doing it because I want people to learn.
Yeah.
Because in my warped head for a long time when I heard people say that, I was like, "No, no, you want them to pay." That's what would come into my head. "No, no, you want them to pay. That's why you do it." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe
But
some of them are good intentioned. Maybe some of them really do have both of those intentions in mind, that
yes.
they want to help, but they also want an energy exchange because they can't only help. It will empty their cup." And it was like, "Oh, no." Like, now I have to face all that.
Yep.
Good times.
Yeah, because well, and I think too is that, most and if you look in spiritual circles, they're all like, it's not about the money, man. And it's just like they talk about taking money out of the conversation. Money is not a bad thing, friends. Money is not a bad thing, but if it's the only motivator, meaning like you're stressed out and you need to sell shit, and you're like, if I create this and sell it, it'll be okay, right? No, it's not.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that it's wrong, but I'm just saying the more we can have a dualistic energy of I do want to help people, but I want to have an energy exchange. People take, let me tell you, from a person who's given away a lot of free healings, let me tell you something. The people that get the free healings, while some of them take and feel and it's great, most of them they don't listen. They don't listen to
Mhm.
anything the spirit is saying. They just kind of go back to their ways of being. But if I charge them, regardless of what I charge, all of a sudden their lives are transformed because there's been an exchange. We
Mhm.
cannot we I human nature is about exchanging. Our
Mhm.
ancestors were bartering back and forth. I have some corn, you have some wheat. Let's do an exchange. I build houses, you grow tomatoes. Let's have an exchange. Money wasn't in existence for a very long time. And we are taught to support in exchange of each other. There was a post um, that I read, and it may not be relevant, but it's reminding me of it now, and I have to share it.
So it's
Where
relevant.
it talks, it talks about how we talk about being authentic and being autonomous and being whatever and figuring ourselves out. when we don't realize our ancestors never had to do it alone. There was an entire village that was supportive of you and in living, in eating, in building, and all the things, and all in, and you had support of a village to help understand what your place was in the village. Like, what were you exchanging with them? And now all of a sudden we're thrown into the world and we're talking about being autonomous and being on our own and making creating life. Girl, it's going to take it takes us twice as long to figure out who we are than it is when you have that village. And
Mhm.
so when you're talking about energy exchange, when you're doing things for free, which is not wrong. I've done it out of like somebody's in crisis. I have come to the rescue in a few times where I'm like, let me just at least offer you this, what I can. But the more I did that, the more I felt disrespected, the more I felt like people didn't see me or
Mhm.
appreciate me. And it's not that it's their job to appreciate me, but I was
Mhm.
like, what am I getting by wanting to give this away for free? Like,
Yeah.
what, this isn't,
Well, and if it's not landing the way we intend, it comes up against a block and we feel that
yeah,
energetically, right? Like I feel like if I am giving to somebody and I'm doing it from my heart, which I always am, and I feel like their energy is just about the attention I'm giving them or just about the validation I'm giving them, I feel that my intention didn't go all the way through. And that's where I feel like I get that like disrespect feeling or like, oh my God, like it's not an even exchange. Whereas if I feel like it all the way goes through, I'm good.
yeah,
Right. Which is why sometimes you still do give people free stuff because
yes,
you actually understand that that's where it's going to go. Because as you were talking, I was like, those meditations I told you that I do are free on YouTube. Right.
yeah,
Right. I'm not paying them for it. However, I know they're getting paid for their ads and their whatever. And so that's why they're doing it is because they understand they're like, I'll put this out into the world. I'll get my whatever my exchange is good.
yeah,
Right. But I came to it because I was ready for it. And I want to do it on my terms right now. That doesn't mean I would never pay somebody if I was ready to be serious and more scheduled and all of that kind of stuff. But that's where like there's this big spectrum of it and why it's really important for us to know why we're doing stuff, right? Because like all of our belief systems matter in this and they matter personally,
yeah,
right? Where like, hey, if I want to give away free stuff because I'm good in all the other areas, I'm not going to feel the thing.
yeah,
But if I'm not good in all the other areas, I'm going to feel the depletion.
yeah,
So I don't want to do it,
right.
right? And so I won't.
And, it's not to say the people that look for free things, like sometimes they're just looking for something free. They're not really looking for what you're offering. It's not a bad thing, but the thing of it is that when people pay for something, they're seeking what you're giving. It's a intentional seeking. And so that's why sometimes it feels more in alignment than if you were to
Ooh,
just somebody's asking for a free session. Like
right.
it there's a difference. It's not wrong. I'm not saying one is
Mhm,
good or bad. There's no morality issue here. But what I'm saying is just mirroring that idea that Vanessa was talking about the energy exchange is so vital when it comes to what we're doing because whilst sometimes we're very self-doubting and not trusting of ourselves and we're very unsure of ourselves, the money what we're offering to people is still worth all of the things that we've learned, we've researched, we've studied, we've been through, we've experienced, our expertise, our all of that is worth something. Even if we're just trying something out and we're not sure, it's okay because
mhm,
what we're trying out is a service to people, is giving to people. And that energy exchange will be mutual and feel less fraught with expectation and um, need
mhm.
of something that will sometimes never happens.
Yeah, 100% because it's an open door, right? Like, as you were talking, I was thinking about, um, and like, as it is, right? The universe goes, "Oh, is this what you're interested? Here you go." Talking about the speaker thing and all that kind of stuff. Never seen this person before on LinkedIn in my entire life. I came across a purple-haired speaking coach, and I was like, like, right? Because it's been one of my fears, like, oh god, here you go on LinkedIn with your like where all the serious people are, right? Like, and they're like, before you felt very outcasty and you felt not professional and all this stuff, but now you're gonna fucking own it, right? And then I get to see somebody that I can look at and be like, oh yeah, I can, like, you know what I mean? Like, give me this little extra boost. So I go to her website because I'm connecting with her on like a bunch of levels. I watch some of her videos and I'm like, oh, like she's got like an eyebrow ring. I'm like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like there's all these little things that they're inferences. They're absolutely stereotypical, but I'm into it, right? Like I'm feeling it. And so I go there and I'm thinking, I'm looking at all of her services and stuff like that. And out of curiosity, right? Because I'm doing curious things about myself. How serious are you, Vanessa, about this, right? Because this is going to help you. And I came to like, I don't know, one of her boot camp things or something. And I saw the price of it and I didn't balk at the price of it. I was like, okay. But then I stopped for a second and I said, I don't know that I'm ready to do it right now, but I'm going to do it because this person, like, I feel like I'm feeling something from them, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse. And I thought about the money exchange, right? Because that was the thing, that was the gate that stopped me. And I was like, I need to wide open gate that so that what she gives me, I'll receive.
Yeah.
Right. If
Yeah.
she gave it to me for free, I don't know that I would receive it the same way as paying for it. And so that's why I didn't just go on her LinkedIn or whatever and just look for free videos, because I felt differently about like, no, 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 I want to pay for her expertise because I feel like it's going to give me something different. But my gate has to be open in order to receive exactly what it is that she can provide for me. And that's that thing that we were talking about, right? Like there may be some free things. I got some tips, right? Like I got some, stuff that she put out there on that free content. But I'm going to be more open if I open the door with my money. My money is my door opener because I work hard for it and I want to use it intentionally. So it will mean that when I'm ready to spend it, I'm ready to learn it too.
Right.
I'm there. And I know I'm not there right now. I'm very scattered right now. I can't, even if somebody handed me the money, if I did it, I'd fuck it up because I'm not in
Yeah.
the right mindset to do it. But that's the thing, right? Like that's that knowledge that we have to have about ourselves and about all of this work to have the money conversation, right?
Yeah. And, and I think this is important when we're thinking about our dreams, because I think in the beginning, our dreams, money is a great, like, driving factor of our dreams. It's not, I think it's not wrong to like consider it in the exchange. It's
Mhm.
not. And when we think about our dreams, like you were talking in the let's go back to the root of this tangent because this went on to the money conversation, which
Oh,
isn't
the
a bad
roots of
tangent.
our trees.
Yes, so big. Um, when we talk about what, the intent of what we're bringing into the world, what are the dreams? And yes, when I wanted to be a healer, I wanted to help people. But my biggest driving factor was I wanted to feel better. I wanted to feel like I was connected to something tangible, and that I was worth something, or was enough for somebody, and that I had value. And I understand and I love that that version of me, because without her wanting it so bad and needing it so bad, I never would be here. I never would be talking to you on this podcast. I
Mhm.
never I never would have done like, you know, trans country moves in like multiple different ways. I never would have found some of my deepest connections through my friends. And so it's not that, when I look back, I can't say, oh, the dream didn't come true, or it didn't, you know, you're not the what you thought it would be. No, I'm not, but I'm part of it, but I'm that and more. I'm the and more, we talk about all the time when you're meditating or you're wanting to manifest, we're reaching for the and more, this or something better. That's why, is because I never could have dreamed that I would have written a book, or that I would have a podcast, or I would be teaching, people how to open their hearts and heal what's in there, and teaching, or giving people sessions or readings or anything like that. Like, I never in my, 9 years ago could ever have fathomed that that was possible. The only thing my brain could fathom was, well, you can be a healer. That
Right.
was it. But that led to so much more. And so
Mhm.
whilst I had to let the healer dream die, so much more grew from the compost of that dream. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
fertilized so much more into such a bigger, richer life. And it's not that I'm done dreaming, and it's not that I'm not continuously letting dreams die because it happens. But I'm not I have a better understanding of the purpose of them dying. I have a better understanding of if I'm gonna go through the scary hardship of not knowing what's on the other side and letting things die, but being like, "Fuck, fuck, 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 fuck." You know, I know that on the other side of that, it's just because it's like saying you need to prune that tree.
Yeah.
Prune the
Yeah.
tree so that you can move forward and grow as tall and as big and as grand you can. Roses don't grow if you don't deadhead them. You
Yeah.
know? It's all of that sense of you can't let your your whole entire tree die because one branch is rotten or it
Mhm.
doesn't fit anymore, and it it's yeah, it's scary as fuck, man. I tell you what, there's things that I'm considering now that are like, "Ooh, that's bigger than I don't know if I can do it." But I'm like, "Look, hey, what are you gonna lose?" Right?
Right.
What are you gonna lose? And,
Right.
you know, it's it also brings us to the point of talking about making room for what you're wanting
Mhm.
and understanding when room cannot be made or when you're like, "Yeah, I'm not inspired to create room." It's your conversation to say, "Is that because I'm blocking or sabotaging, or is that because it's not for me?"
Right.
That was another part of our pregame was talking about, is that the dream isn't for me, or is it because I'm scared of achieving the dream and
Mm.
or what it will mean if I achieve the dream? And it's understanding that. And sometimes you don't know. You don't know until the dream is ready to die that, oh, yep, nope, it wasn't for me, or oh, that was just the catalyst to get me to somewhere else.
Yeah, right, I mean, it really that's part like, probably one of the major parts of the conversation of the dreams, like, how the fuck did they get here,
Yeah.
right? And, like, what evidence can I actually discover that makes this okay and safe, right, to do? And, like, we do go back, like you were talking about those previous versions, and, I mean, if you go back with intent to look at all the little dreams that have died and what have come of them, it's hard to find evidence that it was a bad thing, right? Like, like, because a high percentage of the time, something else happened that wouldn't have happened if that dream didn't die, whatever that dream was, a car, a relationship, whatever that was. You know, we see the path and how things had to die along that path. But I think also when we go back, we can look at where those dreams came from, right? Like I mean, I have always known that I wanted to be a counselor. I mean, I shouldn't say always. When I was younger, you could very clearly see that my influence came from like my immediate family, which is what we talk about all the time, right? Like your little epitaph is written by the people around you when you're tiny and it's a blank slate, I would say, I wanna be a welder or hairdresser, right? My dad was a welder, and I thought it was fascinating that he could just, like, create things, like, and melt them and they'd be super strong and never break. I was like, "This is craziness," right? Loved that. I wanted to do it. I still wanna do it. I don't wanna do it for my job, and that was his viewpoint was, "You don't wanna do this for a job. This is hard work. It's not, like, it may be cool to you, but, like, I'm busting my ass and I'm barely getting by." I mean, granted, had I actually taken that route, I would not be getting by. I'd be making a lot more money than I do right now. That's neither here nor there. The hairdresser thing, like, I just really liked and I still I mean, you can't tell today, you can't see me, I haven't done it, but I love, like, playing with my hair, we know I love to dye it, I love to do that kinda stuff. I used to love to, like, paint my nails and paint, like, little designs on it, like, way back in the day, I used to do that. I didn't wanna do it for a job, I just liked doing it,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, those were dreams that had to die because they weren't my dream. But then when I became part of peer outreach in high school, I was like, wow, I could do this all day, every day. Like, it was like I wanted to quit school and only like I wanted my own little office and the counselors like to be like the peer counselor. I wanted everybody to come to me, right? And I was like, okay, I feel this, right? But then what happened? Society took over and I created from my spark. I said, well, what does it mean? And I looked to society to what it means.
Yeah.
Okay, it means that you'll make $90 an hour, you'll have an office, you'll decorate it this way, you'll dress this way, you'll speak this way. I mean, all of that came in to be like, that's what that means to be a therapist. That's what you got to be. That's what you have to do. That's how it's going to go. And how old was I before I let go of that? I
Yeah.
followed the path that somebody else told me was the path, right? Until I gave up and was like, "Oh my god, like I can't do this, but I want to." And it was like fighting my own fire of like, you really want to do it, but you can't do it that way. What does this mean? Right? Like, and then I started to be like, well, I see other people doing things differently, right? Like Tony Robbins. I was like, this MFer did not go get a master's degree in in psychology like I did, and he's changing lives every day.
Yep.
Interesting. Maybe there's another way. And that's all it took was for me to go, maybe there's another way because if somebody else is doing it a different way, I bet there's even more ways. And that's where my rebellion just took over. It was like, okay, well, what way do you want to do it then? Because
Yeah.
try it, and I tried a bunch of different things. Nobody even hardly anybody remembers anything, right? Like all the panic I had of being like, "Oh my god, I said I was going to be a fertility counselor and now I'm not." Nobody even remembers me doing that because nobody cares, right? Nobody's like, "Wow, what a fraud. You changed your mind."
Yeah. Yeah.
So like the dream those all of those dreams along the way had to die for me to be where I'm at right now. And so I go back in time to do that so that I can give myself some safety today to
Yeah.
say, you're very sure of where you're at right now, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for expansiveness. This dream may die as it is, but it's not going to be a bad thing. Like you had said, it's going to be a good thing when it's time. Let it be time when it's time. Open up, try some things, learn some things, go some places. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. It
Yeah.
can't. You've been divinely held for this long. They're not going to drop you today.
Yeah. Your 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 guardian angel and your spirit guides aren't going, peace out, peeps.
Right. Yeah.
We're done. Like
Too
this is
many
over.
changes. We're done. Too many. We quit.
You asked for too many things. We're out.
Right. I'm exhausted.
Sometimes I think my spirits guides drink because they're like, girl, how many more times are you gonna ask me if you should buy the thing or not? Like,
Yeah.
they're
I'm
like,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure a little bit. They're like, I imagine mine are like,
Mm.
I mean, we put like 7 things in front of her and she didn't do it. Like,
She
what
needed a
else do we
signier
gotta
sign.
do? Right? Like, they, like, have to do a brainstorming session of, like, "We really thought that last one was gonna get her, and it didn't. Now what?"
We tried. We sent
Yeah.
the smoke signals. We did the mind meld. We did everything. She's still not getting it.
Yeah, exactly, like, "Dang it, we're gonna have to do it," right? Like, and I imagine that they do that before the Mack truck, right? Like, before they get in it to
Yeah.
drive it, they're like, "I really didn't wanna do this."
I think, we've grown though. We're not waiting for the frying pan to the face kind of thing anymore. We're at least catching on a little bit before that.
100%, and we're trying to save y'all who are listening.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
god. We've learned, please, like, let us if nothing else, like, let us teach you. It doesn't have to be that way.
Give yourself permission to want to dream, right? We talked about dreams in a different podcast. And, one of the things I've asked myself recently, even amidst the depression that I've been experiencing, I said, if you could do anything, like no brain involved, no logistics, no nothing, like what would you do? What would you want to do? How would you want to be? And, I and this is kind of part of it too when we're thinking about our dreams, right?
Mhm.
We in the spiritual community, we all talk about how we're going to serve. How are we going to serve?
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's a really bad place to be when you're a recovering people pleaser or you're a codependent type of person because you're going to take that idea of service to an extreme that is unhealthy. Because service with sacrifice is not service.
Right.
And if we're sacrificing our well being because we want to be in service of something or do something, then it's not service.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
True.
just word to the wise. I had a epiphany about that this
Mhm.
weekend.
Yeah, blanket statements, man. I'm always
Yeah.
talking about how harmful they can be, right? That sometimes they're helpful because they make us feel like, oh, okay, it's not just me, but sometimes they're a friggin' wet blanket
Yeah. Right.
that just holds
Totally.
us down, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that is one of them, like being of service, right? Like, yeah, but you got to be of service of yourself too. Like, those are like the tandem matters so much, or else
Yeah.
it's not going to go that way. It's not going to
Yeah.
go.
Because
And even
to
like when you were talking about the dream, it's like I can have a dream like you were saying before, Amy's dreams evolved into Grace's dreams, which
yeah.
will evolve into more of Grace's dreams. Like we have to like remain like like healthily unattached in
Yeah.
order to grow. That
Mm.
it's like, okay, this sounds good right now because this is all the information that I have right now about this thing. So I can dream it and I can start to embody it and I can abandon it at any time.
Yep.
Like quitters are winners too. Can't say it enough. If it no longer aligns, it wasn't meant to be forever. And that is okay. We keep talking about people who switch careers in their 40s and 50s and your life isn't over. We talk a good one, but are we willing to actually do it when it comes
Yeah.
down to it? We have to be able to do it, right? If we want that fulfillment. And yes, it's scary, but we don't have to hold on to anything.
Yep.
Let it evolve. Let
Yep.
yourself change your mind. We're not subscribing anymore to all of those invalidation conversations we used to have about being flip-floppy and wishy-washy and not knowing what you want to do with your life and being disloyal and non-committed.
Being
They
a
don't belong here.
flake.
Yeah, being a flake. They don't belong here.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that the knowledge you have now is different from the knowledge you had then. And when
Yeah,
we allow our dreams to evolve with the knowledge we've received, we're allowing our dreams to evolve with us. And that's where we can give ourselves permission to grow, permission to become bigger than we ever thought. And I'm not talking bigger as in like I'm a star, I'm talking bigger within our own lives, right? Big,
expansive. Yeah,
yeah. And having that sense of like, "Oh, okay, you know what? I didn't think that I could write a book, and now I know I can. So guess what? I also wanna be an author. I also wanna write books. I also think, I wanna write blogs. I love to talk. I love to do meditations. Maybe that's what I do." It's giving myself permission to try it on, like you try clothes on and being like, "Yeah, that looks great," or no, I wouldn't walk out of the store in that. So it's just
great.
giving
Looks
yourself
great on the mannequin, not on this
right?
body.
Totally. Um, yeah. Like, every time I do a big move, I keep like, my brain's like, "Oh my god, what if you hate it? Oh my god, what if you hate it?" I'm like, "Then you're gonna move again.
Yeah,
Then
and
you're"
you're gonna want to,
Right,
so you're not gonna be afraid of it. You're gonna be
right.
like, "Yes, let's do that."
Yep, this is in alignment with what I want. If I understand why I don't like it, if it's because it doesn't feel in alignment and it's less about me being afraid and me, less about the trauma and more about the energetic connection to it, then fine. Do it. Go. I mean, I've done it 3 times now. I don't know, like, if I how much more proof that I need that I can do it again? Like
Right, and that when you do it with a good reason, there's a good reason for it, and that's it, and, like, we don't have to think any far beyond it because, again, like, that's what we do. We go in because we've been programmed to do it, to be like, "Well, you shouldn't do it if it's not gonna be forever." Like, there's literally no such thing as forever, and that is so limiting. right? Like it is so friggin' limiting. But when we actually understand that, well, if I'm inspired to do something different and I trust myself and I trust my connection with source, then that inspiration is always going to be supported. It's not going to be as hard as I think it is. Or if it comes with hardship, those will be level up hardships and I will take them as level up hardships because
Yeah.
I'll know that on the other side of it is something awesome. Right. And we have to be able to trust that. Like I keep being like, I gotta move, I gotta move. And I'm like, I guess not. I don't know. Like, it's not happening. Nothing's feeling inspired, so I guess not. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
If it's not now. It's okay if I still have lessons to learn or if I still have, you know, feet to put under me. I'm okay with it. It's no longer like, "Oh my god, you told everybody you're gonna move and, like, now you're not moving, and so nobody thinks you're brave anymore." Like, I've not even had that conversation one time
Yeah.
because I'm so much into, like, okay, I mean, that when it's supported, it's easy. So until it's supported,
Yeah.
just let go and do the things that feel supported.
Or even if it doesn't feel easy, because let me tell you something, moving across country was not fucking easy this time. But there was a part of me that was connected to the tangible rightness of what I was doing.
Yes.
Even if you're facing hardship in a sense of like you don't, it's your emotions are whacked out, you're in trauma response, and you're like, is this the right thing? But there's a part of you that whispers and says, yes, it's the right
Mm,
thing.
yeah,
You keep going. You keep going because you know it's right. And you know on the other side of what you're experiencing and feeling is everything you've been asking for.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what's important is that if you know that that's what you want, then that's what you do
yeah.
until you realize it's not what you want anymore. And then you go and then you change. Then you do something different. All right, my
All
friends.
right. I'm just gonna expose myself. I had a completely different tangent that my brain just went on, and I went to write it down real quick so I wouldn't forget. And I was like, "Oh, no, she paused. Fuck." Like, but I felt it too, like, I felt like, "We're coming to a close, so just write it down really quickly."
Yeah.
Um, because we're having an expansive conversation, and it has created expansion within me, and I just came up with an idea for our Freud's Angels brand that made me very excited, something I had never thought of before, and it's because of we're having this conversation. And so, how much more proof do you need, y'all? Like, talk about it, be about it, follow it, see where it goes, abandon it when it feels wrong, like wrong, wrong, not when it's hard. Because there's a
Yeah.
big difference
Yeah.
between knowing when it's wrong and when it's hard. And I understand that sometimes we don't know that difference. But if you quiet yourself and you really listen, you will hear it very clearly.
Yeah.
It takes a while, right? Like, we've had to train ourselves to do that, right? Like, is this trauma speaking or is this intuition? "Ah, help, 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 help," right?
Yeah.
"Tell me now." Right?
I ask that question multiple times a day.
Absolutely, I do it too. Or, are you having a trauma response or do you feel, like, led and supported? And
Yeah.
yeah, you learn how to navigate through that, but either way, it's never wrong because it's either here to lead you or to teach you,
Yeah.
and both of those things are gonna help you in the end.
Sure will. My friends, I hope you have a good week. I hope you kind of think about your dreams. What are they? Do they fit? Do they lead you to something better and greater? Or are they ready to just be pruned off your tree? Whatever that is right. And it's okay if you want to keep them for a minute because maybe that's part of your lesson and part of what you need to learn. But may they be expansive as you are, and may you trust in that expansion. And what if you don't, then you figure out why you don't trust it.
Yes.
Yeah. We love you, and we will see you next week.
Yay, love y'all. Thanks for listening.
We hope we gave you something to support your journey.
Check out our Facebook or Instagram page to connect with us.
Have a great week.